Hey everyone, before I get started, I just want to remind you that if you like my content, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and then join the Militiaman and Crew Patreon community by clicking the link in the caption. Hey everybody, Militiaman and Crew here. I hope everybody's having a great afternoon and early evening. Lots of good things still happening. We all know that the progress is amazing. The execution of what's happening with the legal departments, with say the finance ministry, Taif Sami, she's been out today. Al Sudani's been out again today. Al Alak, the central bank governor's been out today. You have to see all the contracts and those things that have been underway and in play. We've talked about other countries coming in and doing business. But remember, we talked about tenders in the past, last December. So those are some of the things that are interestingly enough that there's going to be a brief synopsis. There's a 7-page document out today that I think that everybody should come into Patreon or Discord or even just research it yourself. I'll give the name of that article. It has to do with some spiritual background because of the nature of the beast and when it happened, which was today. The nature of it, not necessarily the beast, just the nature of it. It was on a day that is meaningful for Iraq. And what is it? It's about implementation or launching of projects. That means that they're going to need to get paid for it. And we know that the 23, 24, 25 budget has a component to it that's regards to services and investment. And so for them to have all these very, very large projects that are ongoing throughout the governance is important to understand. So keep that in the back of your mind, because it's important, because if you believe in what we are here for, is that Iraq is going to be going to an international situation where they're going to be opening up to the world. They're going to be building all these projects because you have investors to help do so. You don't build 120,000 housing units just for fun, and you're not going to just build them at 1,310. They would have done that a long, long, long time ago, but they didn't do it. They didn't do it at 1180 even, okay? They didn't do it at 1450 even. It was probably even more expensive, so it's no wonder why. But ultimately speaking, we're going to see that there's things that are happening, and people are jockeying around, saying things, doing things. We've had the United States Treasury show up. We've had some bickering back and forth between the United States telling us what they believe what we're doing is a good thing. We have the central bank governor saying those things. But you also have articles that are out there from different sides of the fence suggesting that the central bank hasn't done their job. The military of the United States needs to leave. They're not doing anything proper. They're the ones that are breaking our sovereignty, when you have all these other factual data that supports that. There's a slight back and forth. But the good part is that we see that there's strength in the fact that the private sector is their main focus. And so some of this stuff could be just peripheral. It could be what is considered propaganda. I think if people will go back and look at Blue Star's data that was from the Chamber of Commerce with Dr. Shabibi, they talked about propaganda. Propaganda is something that is very common in the world. I think we all know that. And one of the things that they'll use at the end of anything is to set people back just a little bit off their on their back foot, if you will, when it comes to what are we doing? They're not going to tell us what day they're going to do it. They're not going to tell us how much they're going to do it for. They're not going to do any of that. So that it's silly to think that they're going to, but to figure out, hey, what makes sense and what's reasonable and what's comfortable for everybody. It's going to be completely different for everybody. But where I'm at, I think the progress, and that's again why I've tried to reiterate, is why I go back in time, is that you can see the progress. You can see that stuff that's been done over the last year, for instance, a year and 6 months. You can see specifically that this was said that was going to be done, and boom, 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 boom. You see it. Okay, so back to this partnership, right? Washington says that we partner with Iraq to support a sound and strong financial system by attracting investment. Well, one of the largest and one of the most famous people out there that was supposedly leaving office is Alina Romanowski. She's the ambassador from the United States, and she's basically stated that the United States and Iraq share the goal of supporting a sound and strong financial system in Iraq, which will attract investment and ultimately benefit the Iraqi people. There you have it, right? Benefit the Iraqi people, that's the goal. She says that Romanowski was talking about I'm pleased that Brian Nelson, the Undersecretary of State for Terrorism and Financial Intelligence to Iraq, has strengthened this important cooperation. So she's giving him some kudos because he showed up, I think it was on Sunday and Monday. And obviously, if one of the highest in the land showed up to Iraq, I think those meetings in the background are probably pretty focused. They're probably highly intense. They didn't talk about Iraq the way that they did at the UN Assembly in September, and they didn't talk about the meetings and the deals that they did in Davos this last couple of weeks for no reason. And you didn't see all these different people showing up from different countries around the world talking about trade agreements. We're talking Azerbaijan, we're talking Spain, we're talking about opening banks in Jordan. We know that we have deals with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia was bragging about, I'm not saying bragging, but they were in support of Iraq. They said they had done such a good job that they had effectively did 13 to 15 years worth of work in 1 year to get WTO accession. So they're definitely supporting it. All of the systems in place, the electronic systems that they talk about, you cannot deny that there's things that are different than all of those guys that have been around for 20 years, 15, 10, etc. If you think that you've seen this before, you're highly mistaken. And so, anyway, just an FYI. This parliamentary proposal to the central bank and the Ministry of Oil. So there's an article out today that says that the parliamentary economy, the industry and trade community proposed to the Central Bank of Iraq and the Ministry of Oil in the general budget law to do what? To diversify Iraq's reserves from the dollar, the euro, the won, and other foreign currencies. That's interesting that they would say something like that. Why would they want to do that? Why would they want to diversify their currency away from the dollar and the euro and the won and the foreign currencies? All of those correspondent banks that we talked about have those currencies, but yet the Iraq wants to diversify from it. Is that because they want to go to a gold-backed or an asset-backed currency? They have a lot of assets. They've got a lot of gold. We're going to find out. We'll see how that turns out. I think it's a good positive side, though, to tell you the truth. And so the Ministry of Finance, we all know that's Taif Sami, her office basically says we're adopting a promising development program that is consistent with the provisions of the government curriculum. So the Ministry of Finance is in line with the government, and we like to hear that. So Taif basically goes on. She met with a minister today in her office and a parliamentary delegation that included representatives of, there's a whole laundry list of them. So let's just put it this way. Why don't you guys get to the article, because we're adopting a promising development program. That's the beginning words. I think you guys can come into Patreon and find it. But at the bottom line, it says there's a partnership between the executive and legislative authorities. So the highest are together. Okay, so the executive branch, legislative authorities are all looking to do what? They're basically looking at adopting the government curriculum aimed at correcting financial and monetary policy, and which is achieved through the support and assistance of the legislative authorities. And their interest is in basically advancing economic and financial reality, achieving elements of sustainable development. Those are buzzwords that you've probably heard numerous times. And why sustainable development? Well, I think the UN has got a big program for Iraq, even Saudi Arabia and Egypt specifically through 2030 on that exact same thing. And what is it for? It's providing services for citizens. So that's no change there. They're on track. Here it says Al Sudani has been sponsoring or has been signing. Well, let's see. Al Sudani sponsors the signing of the contract for the Ali Al Wadi City project, the largest residential project in Iraq. So if I can get that right, Ali Al Wadi, end quote. City project, largest residential project in Iraq. And why is it that big? It's because it's going to be about 120,000 units. It says the project is being implemented for the first time in the history of Iraq, and the size and capacity that it comes in compliance with what was stated in the government program regarding finding radical and sustainable solutions to the housing crisis. It's awesome. Al Sudani expresses his appreciation, and for what? The performance of a specialized team in the Ministry of Housing and Reconstruction and the Baghdad municipality and the rest of the concerned departments, which confirms the investment environment in Iraq has become effectively prepared and attractive. And guess what? There's 61 million meters of land in the southeastern portion of Baghdad. And what's it going to provide? 121 or 120,000 diverse housing units. I don't know about you guys in America, 121,000 housing units. Let's just call it, for instance, if you happen to be in some of the richest cities in the world, like San Francisco or Washington, D.C., or, I mean, many different, you pick them. I mean, I'm probably not even coming close, right? Even in the West, right? In the Boise area, for instance, what are they running, about $500,000 each for your median house price? I'm not sure. Those are some of the numbers that were on some of those news agencies that have been out there. The news mechanism, a new mechanism has been approved for electronic submissions. So the Minister of Construction is basically adopting a new mechanism for electronic submissions for the funds of housing loans. Really? So you're going to have 100,000 units and they're going to have loans on them. I would have to say, if I was a mortgage broker and I was here in the United States in America, I think I'd be on a plane to Baghdad, because being able to do some deals with 120,000 units, that's just one project. That's how big this is. Think about the Development Road Project, moving from the Silk Road Initiative to the Development Road Initiative all the way into Europe. They have to build all this out. The infrastructure is just going to be immense. And no wonder the WTO is sitting there scratching their heads going, are you done yet? You ready? I mean, it's nuts. So anyway, the municipality of Mosul, okay? Mosul had ISIS. One of those things that everybody seems to like, well, this should have happened. They always kick the can. Well, who kicked the can? We had ISIS in 2016. What are you going to do? You had to clean up the terrorism. You had to clean up a lot of stuff. So, understandably so. Reform projects take some time. And here we are. This says the municipality of Mosul has begun establishing this industrial city after completing preparations to establish such an industrial city. And for the first time, with who? A Turkish supportive group. And they will establish this all with where? In the city of Mosul. Will it have a positive impact? They say yes. And what is it going to be doing? It's going to be contributing to employment with labor throughout the government. Well, building a city creates a lot of jobs. That's bottom line. And then here, the central bank governor, he says that we prevented banks and companies from obtaining the dollar, and the work on the electronic platform will end during the current year. He didn't say at the end of the year. He said it's going to end during the current year. What does that mean? Well, to some people, this electronic platform is where you get the dollar that goes to the parallel market, which is smuggled out of the country. Well, I think that if that's the case, then he's going to cease that. Could that come at any time? That very well could come at any time, because tomorrow is during the current year. So I think that I believe that Al-Alaq is probably on a mission. So, Governor of Central Bank says the bank prevented a number of banks and companies from obtaining the dollar for not adhering to their requirements. In other words, they weren't playing by the rules. It says the electronic platform will end its operation during the current year. They've been on notice. They've already said it was going to be at the end of the year or by the end of the year. And then they also said that they have some specific things for financing or from cash deposits and correspondent banks, etc., that needed to be done as early as the 29th to the 1st of March. So I think these guys, and no wonder they're complaining. That's why a lot of these guys are out there complaining, because guess what? That cash cow that they have and that dollar is drying up. And what's going to happen? Well, if they adjust the exchange rate of the Iraqi dinar to be stronger than the dollar, these guys got problems. And the Al-Hubba Bank, or Al-Huda, bank, I think there's more to the story. I think that there's probably some counterfeiting that they were laundering in the bank. Is probably a little bigger than they were putting out in the public. So we'll see how that turns out. They're all allegations. I have no proof of that, just let you know. It says the banks can correct their conditions and obligations required to enter their foreign transactions. So in other words, if you play by the rules, we'll let you play ball. And if you don't want to play ball, then so be it. It's your bag. The central bank has reached the final stages of regulating external transfers to banks. So that's pretty bold when the central bank says we have reached the final stages of regulating external transfers. So in other words, they've done something for what? Imports and exports. External transfers is cross-border payments. These platforms that they have are going to be not just in the dollar, they're going to be in all the other currencies. So all these folks that think they can't do business on this platform and get away with, I don't know, corruption, they're going to be on the sidelines. So it says the U.S. Treasury effectively has praised the central bank's provisions for banks, which included conditions and standards for external transfers and opening accounts with internationally accredited foreign banks. So they're knocking it out of the park, telling us all these different things. And here today was with that article. It's really important that it's called the Text of Cabinet Decisions Declaring a Day for the Holy Quran. And so the Prime Minister, Shia al-Sudani, chaired the 5th regular session of the Council of Ministers, and he goes on and on, talking about, polite stuff, all the good things that they should be talking about. But what does it come down to? It talks about electronic payments. It talks about commissions. It talks about decisions of the Ministerial Council related to electronic payments. For what? For construction, for rebuilding, for projects, for sewage plant, schools, hospitals. All of that is gearing towards what? The investment side and or the operational side for the services for the citizens. Hospitals, schools, water, sewer, all of that. Agriculture. Okay, so we don't need to go into that anymore. I would suggest, though, that everybody read that. It's a very long read. We have it in the forum. I had a nice conversation with Pompey Peter today in Petra, and he was focused in on it because it got him very excited. So if Petra is excited and Pompey Peter are, when we have a conversation, it makes me excited too. So come join us. Trade Bank of Iraq decided to restart the salary location project. Well, interestingly enough, the Trade Bank of Iraq, who has been involved with the Trade Bank and who had eyes on the Trade Bank all the way back to 2003, 20 years ago, none other than J.P. Morgan. J.P. Morgan, September 8th, 2003. They won a contract to set up the Iraqi Trade Bank. And what were they going to do? They were going to work with the ANZ banking group, the Bank Millennium, National Bank of Kuwait, yada, yada, yada. And what were they going to do is they were going to help facilitate banking and when Iraq gets up and running. And now we see the Iraqi Trade Bank. It says we're committed to maintaining the localization of salaries in accordance with the localization agreements concluded with the esteemed departments, and we will continue to provide all banking services and facilities and have absolute freedom to close or freedom to choose the bank in which you would like your salaries to be localized. So anybody that's anybody or anybody everywhere in Iraq can come to them to have their currency paid to them through localized banks. of their choice, of course. But here it says the Iraqi Trade Bank allows to seek and provide the best service at various levels, whether to private or public sector or to government institutions, whether individuals or companies, in addition to its services provided for all aspects, including commercial, investment, industrial projects, reconstruction projects, infrastructure projects, and other projects in the interest of the country and supporting the Iraqi national economy. And sounds like something JP Morgan would be behind, right behind the Iraqi Trade Bank, because they just labeled every single entity or sector, if you will, that's going to be involved in rebuilding Iraq. So every one of those employees has been on notice at the Iraqi Trade Bank. If you want to come to us, you can, to get your salaries. So you come to work, you're going to get paid through us. Last article I have for the night, excuse me, is the central bank announces reaching the final stages of organizing remittances. And who is this from? This is from the central bank governor, Ali Alak. It is a few pages. I'll just go over a couple of bits and pieces because the truth is this is another one of those articles I think you could come in and read 3 or more pages of it. But the part is that Alak is basically, in a nutshell, saying to the world that, look, what we're doing for the banking system is not exactly what you think it might be. It's basically saying there's a difference between including a bank on sanctions and list them on the Office of Foreign Assets Control and stopping a bank from dealing in dollars. So in other words, if you're doing something illicit, it doesn't necessarily mean that the way it's put, you can't keep doing banking services, but if you're doing specific items and you're not complying to international standards, there's certain things you can't do with the dollar. Okay, so you can still have savings accounts, banking accounts, do commercial dealings in Iraq in the Dinar, but if you're going to be doing import, export, external transfers, you have rules to play by. And that's basically what this article is about. It says the electronic banks have become obligated and required to follow compliance rules and sound international standards. Simple enough. The dollar, after recording notes on it, it says for banks to be able to carry out external transfers and operations or sell the dollar, they must have response and compliance requirements, and they need to get back to the bank to prove that they've done it. And it says basically that they do not, if those banks don't meet the requirements and are prohibited from dealing in the dollar, it's not necessarily a punishment for those banks, but rather it is an incentive for them to implement the standards that are international. So basically they're expecting high rates of rejections on this electronic platform, and they will be ongoing through the next, throughout the year. They probably get that. It's because it takes time for, you know what, weaning the corrupt off a bad habit is not very easy. And so anyway, what's else? The last thing is, it says the governor of the central bank indicated that the directives were issued to all banks wishing to enhance their balance with correspondent banks in all currencies by appointing an external auditor. And those things we already know about. There was 13 of the largest firms in the world that are in Iraq. And basically it's saying that, look, the correspondent banks, they need to be accredited in clearing currency and consolidated with the clearinghouse. And any of those correspondent banks that are going to be involved with the currency outside of this project, they got to have a A rating for their credit rating. So Alak has been quite clear in the matter, and it's fascinating, good stuff, that obviously if they're going to start launching projects to fund and to build the infrastructure of Iraq, and that's what's happened today. Powerful information, you guys. I love it. Thank you for being with me. Please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and of course, if you guys are interested in helping this content keep coming now into the future, because there's going to be more to come, please, we have the Venmo, we have the Zelle, and we have PayPal. Thank you. Once again, guys, don't forget to hit that like button if you like this content, subscribe to the channel, or join us at the Militia Man and Crew Patreon community for even more exclusive content. You can also donate to this channel by hitting the links in the banner to help keep this page up and running. Your generous support is greatly appreciated, as always. Much, much appreciated. Thank you so much and have a great day.